All right. Hey everyone, it's Melody Loomis again here with Kearney Chiropractic Center, and we are here with one of our referral partners, Mr. Tom Maronick. He is with the law office of Thomas Maronick Jr.
That's right.
All right. He is right downtown in the heart of Baltimore in St. Paul Plaza. Here is where his offices are. And he's actually got several locations, but this is the local one, the closest one to us. And you're also in Ocean City and Annapolis, Maryland, right?
And a couple satellite offices.
That's awesome.
Keeps us busy.
Yeah. So he is doing great work here, working on the personal injury and criminal side of things, and really serving clients all over Maryland with that. So that is amazing. Also just celebrated his 10th year anniversary being in business by himself. So clap, clap for that.
Have a lot of good people.
That's awesome.
A lot of great partners.
Yep. So we just wanted to get together with him today and talk a little bit about some things that you, our viewers, may not know about personal injury and what kind of the process is and the climate of claims and insurance companies these days. So let's get started. All right, tell me about what happens when someone's in an accident. I don't want to make the mistake of just assuming that everybody knows what the process is. So what should they expect from their insurance company and the other person's insurance company if they're not at fault when they're in a car accident?
Well, you need to report to both insurance companies. You need to report to your insurance company because they will usually provide you PIP. Unless you have waived PIP as part of your coverage. That stands for personal injury protection. What that means is the money that you're going to get right away. So you're injured. You go see Dr. Loomis, you go see Melody, and they say, give us your insurance information, let's see where you are. Your PIP will help pay some of those costs.
Right.
But you should also get the other person's insurance information and report the accident to them. The reason you do that is because you're hoping that their investigation will show that they are responsible. They may deny liability, they may accept liability, but obviously you call an attorney right away and we will guide you through that. In my office, you call us, we're going to have myself or John Willard, my associate, or Mark Mervine, my paralegal, get in touch with you right away. What we're going to do is try to get the facts of the case. What happened exactly, when it happened, what calls you've made, what coverages you have, so that we can help you navigate through that process.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about liability and the importance of having an attorney. We get a lot of kickback in our office when we see patients who are not represented by an attorney. If we recommend an attorney, people have a lot of disputes. Oh, attorneys are crooks, or I don't need an attorney, I can negotiate this myself, it's going to cost too much money. I mean, all kinds of things that people have in their head about, what attorneys are and what they aren't. And what would you say is the importance of what's the biggest reason to get an attorney if you've been in a car accident? And even not knowing if you're at fault or not, right? Because sometimes that's questionable, and Maryland's a no-fault state, right? So sometimes we're not even sure who's at fault. So just getting that initial consult, you will then determine whether or not you're going to take on a case, correct?
That's right. And when we say no fault, what we mean is there's different types of negligence. So if somebody makes a mistake, okay, that's what negligence is an accident.
That's why they call it accident.
There's two types of determining who's actually at fault. In the state of New York, which is a comparative negligence case, for example, they will look and see how much at fault one driver is versus the other driver. Okay. So one driver could be 98% at fault, the other driver could be 2% at fault. That won't negate the recovery of the 98% because of the 2% where that person might have been slightly over the speed limit, for example. In Maryland, it will, because we have something called contributory negligence. Now, how does this all relate to having a lawyer? Well, what we are going to do is analyze the case, and you'll be working with professionals, people who do this for a living. In my office, and I think most personal injury firms, we do not take a fee unless we get you a recovery. So if you're not getting a settlement figure that you are happy with, and obviously we'll advise you as to what we think is fair, or it goes to trial and we don't win, not that that happens very often, but obviously we can't guarantee a specific result. But if it doesn't happen, we're not going to make any money. In my firm, we're a bit exemplary in one way. We don't even take costs. We're not going to ask you for money to even get a report. We'll go ahead and do that as part of what we do in our process. So because of that contingency, the lawyer's not going to take any of your money because we're not going to get any of your money unless we get a result for you. So I think that
can put a lot of minds at ease, I think. When people are in an accident and they just want to suck up their pain or suck it up because they are afraid, oh, well, they're going to bill me if I lose my case, or maybe I was looking at my phone and I don't want to tell anyone, or I was driving over the speed limit. I mean, who doesn't drive over the speed limit? Come on.
Everyone.
Everyone, yeah. So I think that can really put people's minds at ease. And when we throw out words like contributory negligence, or that's a tough one, or personal injury protection, let's transition and talk about personal injury protection. That is meant for lost wages as a result of a car accident and medical bills. But in Maryland, it's not required.
Right.
And more often than not, what we've seen lately, even personally, since we were with the same insurance company for like a decade, and when we switched, we did all this electronic signing, and they didn't want to give us our discount for electronic signature unless we waived PIP. And they were trying to force us into waiving PIP, even though we had elected it on the policy. And I kept saying, no, I'm not signing that because it doesn't let me check the box that says I'm not waiving PIP.
Yeah.
So we've actually had a lot of patients who thought they had PIP on their plan get in a car accident. And they're like, no, yes, I have personal injury protection. And it's actually not there because they either signed it, they didn't understand it when they signed up, they haven't checked their policy, or maybe it's just guest PIP, which is for anyone who's driving in the car with you.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on PIP, how to make sure we have it, how much should we have, and how can we use it if we're in an accident?
Well, it's money that you're guaranteed. That's the good thing about PIP. And I want to make another point about the insurance companies. The insurance companies, the adjusters, they're generally publicly traded companies. So the adjuster is working for that company. They are not working to get you the maximum recovery you should get. They're there to lower the amount because their shareholders want less money to be paid out in settlements.
Right.
They don't want to lose if it goes to trial. So they're there to try to get a low settlement, a low ball settlement. And obviously, PIP is something where you're going to get money right away. So you definitely want to have PIP. How much should you have? $2,500 is my recommendation, not legal advice, but just generally speaking.
Yeah. And that's the state minimum. If you have it, that's the state minimum.
If you have at least that, that's fine. So I would get at least the $2,500. If you're somebody who maybe you're in an area where there's a lot of accidents, there's a particular intersection you live nearby where there's a lot of things that have happened, maybe you want to consider getting a bit more.
Right.
But if you got a big family, for example, you got a lot of kids, if something were to happen and you were knocked out for several
or if you're
weeks.
the sole breadwinner.
Right.
And
you might want to consider
out of work for a few weeks, and you know how much money you make. Think about that. You know, do I have enough for my medical bills and some lost wages as well? Yeah.
And you might want to consider supplementary policies. I know that Aflac, some other companies sell those. Supplementary policies cover things that are not covered by your general insurance. You might want to consider that as well. Not every plan is perfect that has every coverage that you want.
Right.
But I think it's good to be more insured than less insured. And what we can do as attorneys is we're going to negotiate based on what the circumstances are.
So there's additional med pay you can get on top of your PIP. So how is that different than PIP?
The med pay is a bit more complicated. That covers certain types of bills that PIP will not, or it's an extension on what you have on PIP. I'm sort of in between on what I think of those policies, because it really depends on what the premiums are versus what you're getting. I think you need to look very carefully with those. Okay. PIP, I think, is something that is
Everyone
a necessity. Never waive PIP is my strong recommendation.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's say I'm in an accident. I mean, what should we do? Should we go to the ER? What is, if someone calls you and says, okay, I was just in an accident, what should I do? I don't even know what to do. Should I go to the ER? Should I go to urgent care, my primary care, a chiropractor directly? What's the best thing for my case at that point? I
think it depends on the seriousness of the injury. I mean, if you can't walk, go to ER right away. If you're feeling some pain the next day, but you didn't feel a lot of pain right away, that might be best to go to your chiropractor, because that's something that obviously your office can treat. If it's something much more serious, obviously that's when you look to, or you're having multiple symptoms, for example. That's something you might want to go to your primary care or to the ER at that point. Urgent care is an option. Urgent care is typically for jurisdictions that you have something sort of in between, not quite ER, but not something that you're comfortable just going to. Chiropractor will cover all of your issues. Urgent care may be able to solve more of those issues. But generally, if you feel like you're okay that night, but the next day you're feeling pain and it's in a particular area, like your back in particular, your
neck, whiplash is a common one.
Neck and whiplash, you can call Dr. Loomis and they're going to come in.
Right.
They'll make sure you get much of the same treatment, if not all the same treatment,
right.
to be frank.
And you can go either direction. You can go to an attorney first and they can refer you to one of the chiropractors that they work with, or other specialists if need be, or you can come to us first and we can refer you to an attorney. It doesn't matter. The point is just to get the care you need right away and quickly, because adjusters will look at that too, right? They look at how quickly do you get medical care, which shows how much you are really injured in their minds. And did you stick to recommended treatments as well? Was there a big gap in the care because you took a 3-week vacation to Bora Bora and suddenly they're going to say, well, you must not have been that injured.
Not too bad.
Yeah,
right.
Not too bad. And they're going to go do on your case value, right?
100%.
So keeping track of, and keeping on top of that and really making it a priority. I think that's a big thing that people miss too. They start to feel a little bit better and they say, let me just get my settlement. And then a couple months later, they're right back where they were when they started and they're in pain again. But now they've cashed that check and they can't continue. So making sure to follow the doctor's recommendations, we can't recommend that enough.
And that's where I defer to you guys. Yeah,
we educate really well. I mean, in our office, about 90% of our personal injury cases complete their treatment plans. I mean, we start educating on day one, and our whole team is trained to really talk about how pain is, the last thing to arrive and the first thing to go away when there's an underlying symptom. And so with trauma, you don't want to mess with it. You want to make sure you have those objective findings and make sure you're really back to pre-injury status before we discharge you.
I do think making sure you call counsel as soon as possible is a good idea.
Yes.
And what we do in our office, is there a doctor that you see regularly? Do you have a chiropractor? If I say, yes, I use Dr. Loomis, great, that's wonderful. We always love to send cases to Dr. Loomis. Maybe you have somebody else, maybe you live farther away, whatever the circumstances, we usually ask that question. But if you say, no, I don't have someone, that's where especially we'd want to send you to a place like Dr. Loomis, because we know
somewhere close to their house.
Right, where you're going to be treated well. Because some doctors don't seem to understand the concept of personal injury cases. And I think it's important to note that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be ever getting chased about bills when you have a lawyer involved.
Right.
The doctor that you see needs to understand this is a case that could recover.
Right.
The lawyer has the bills. We're dealing with them. We're putting them together. This may go to litigation. And doctors... Not
going to bill your health insurance.
Right. And that's the thing that I think that's different between doctors like Dr. Loomis, like your office, and a hospital, because the hospital doesn't care. They're going to send you those bills, and they're going to chase you no matter what.
Right.
We can try to fend them off, but generally they're going to do it anyway.
Right. I know. And then it's just a matter of taking care of those liens that they put on you and all that. So I think that's all good information. All right. So we talked a little bit about the pain initially, and then the pain and how they can legally go anywhere for treatment. They don't have to go to one place or another. Let's talk about health insurance. What are the benefits and risks in using it in a personal injury claim? Because I've heard attorneys go one way and then the other. Some attorneys say, no, don't ever bill health insurance, even if they don't have PIP. And some attorneys say, just go ahead and bill their health insurance. But now you've got deductibles, co-pays, a lot of expenses. What's your opinion on that?
Don't bill your health insurance.
Okay.
I'm pretty straightforward on that.
And why is that?
Because you shouldn't have to pay for something that's not your fault.
That's what I feel too.
It's a concept that just doesn't make any sense. As my father likes to say, it doesn't compute.
Yes.
If this was someone else's fault on the accident, then their insurance should be dealing with this.
Right. Agreed. I want to back up a second here and just comment real quickly. You said about calling for legal counsel right away.
Right.
There's a reason for that, because if you got that other person's insurance information and we're not sure who's at fault, or if you're pretty sure you're not at fault, that third-party insurance, which is that other person in the other car involved, their insurance company is going to contact you usually within 24 hours.
Yes.
And what do they do all the time to your clients?
We'd like to get a recorded statement. And the recorded statement is where they ask questions where you may not know the correct answer, the correct way to answer those questions, and the result is usually not good for you.
Right.
So what we want to do is handle that our way. We're not going to do the recorded statement right now. We'll be happy to coordinate that if it's something that we want to get into.
Right.
But the reason that we don't let you speak to them is because you don't know what to say. Imagine a police investigator asking you questions for which the police investigator probably knows most of the answers. Now, we hope that you're never in trouble in that regard, but you're probably not going to be the best trained on how to answer the questions, and maybe you get very nervous. The same types of things can happen on these recorded statements. Even if you don't intend to say the wrong thing, you might say the wrong thing. And that's why having counsel is utterly critical.
And I don't think people realize what it does. I mean, it can ruin your case.
Yes.
The other thing they can do is if they know that they're at fault, a lot of times they'll say, we're just going to send you a check for $1,000. How's that sound?
Sounds good at the time.
Sounds good at the time, right? I'm in pain. You have no idea how much your medical bills are going to be.
Right.
And the minute you sign that check, your case is closed, right?
And suppose you go to Dr. Loomis and he says, wow, this looks like this is a bigger problem than just whatever.
We need to send you for an MRI or
Right.
to an orthopedic or...
This is going to need a 42-week course of treatment to get you back to healthy.
Yeah.
And
That's going to cost $8,000.
that's not going to cost $1,000. Right, exactly.
That's going to cost a lot more than $1,000. Who's going to pay for that now? So if someone does make that mistake, let's say someone's watching, they're like, oh my
Right.
God, that was me. I was in that car accident and I signed the check and I got, bullied by the insurance company. I didn't know. I'm just now looking at this.
Right.
Is there any recourse?
Not usually. If you took the check and you didn't hire counsel, I mean, the
If
only
they cash
person...
the check, they can't contact you later. And
While our firm would always look at it to see if
Sure.
what the check was and see if it was something that was a full and final settlement.
Right.
We could look at that. But basically, in most cases, you only would have yourself to blame on this.
yeah. Well, and it's by negligence. Like, I mean,
Right.
most people, this is why you do what you do. I
Right.
mean, this is,
Right.
because most people don't know. They have to be able to trust somebody. And that's honestly just backing up why we're doing these community interviews. We want to get up close and personal with you guys in your living rooms and let you kind of see and hear from the horse's mouth, like the guy who's in the courtrooms fighting for his clients
Right.
every day. And know that, like, this is not an intimidating process. This is just pick up the phone, call
Yeah.
Tom Maronick, say, I was in a car accident, what do I do next? All right, so let's say I've been through the treatment and I'm getting ready to settle. I'm back to pre-injury status.
Sure.
My chiropractor took great care of me. I'm feeling good. What should I expect as far as the time frame? Like, we've heard about cases, dragging out for months into
Right.
years.
Right.
What's a typical, I know it can vary, but what's a typical time frame for settlement?
Well, in most cases, there's some differences to this. There's some notice requirements, but generally in Maryland, you have 3 years to file a suit, okay?
Okay.
So once the treatment is concluded, the insurance company is going to say, do we have all of the bills, and has the doctor stipulated to maximum recovery? That
Right.
means there's really not going to be much more for you to improve upon.
Right.
That way the insurance company will say, okay, well, that's it. We can't
Right.
expect more bills to come in. We're going to submit all of that. We're going to submit your lost wages, and we're going to do that whenever you finish your treatment, okay? So if the treatment takes 6 months,
Right.
we're going to submit the bills once you're done.
Right.
If alternatively it's a pretty straightforward accident where you're not seriously injured and Dr. Loomis, your office feels that you are recovered enough that everything is what it's going to be, then at that point we can say this is all we've got and here's what we think a reasonable settlement would be. And of course we're going to argue for what we think is the fair value, because we're going to consider the total of the bills. We're going to consider your lost wages. We're going to consider anything else that was an additional cost. Maybe you had to take a different form of transportation because of the nature of the injury. Maybe there was some other inconvenience you had to go through. And then of course there's pain and suffering.
Right.
That's the injury that you suffered. That's the sort of psychological, physical trauma you went through. And we're going to ask for a multiple of whatever it is that we submit as far as those bills and lost wages, so that we can get that recovery. Now again, we attorneys don't take anything except a percentage of that if we do reach the settlement. So generally those discussions will happen right away after you finish. Well, they'll be ongoing, but they'll move forward in earnest once that takes place. And you're looking at maybe 1 to 3 months within that period of time, because it's a negotiation. They're going to come up with an offer, we're going to say no, we're going to send them an offer, they're going to say no, and then they'll say this is our final offer, and it's a take or leave, and we'll discuss with our client, this is what you're getting, here's what we have, there's no Medicare liens, or there are, this is what you're likely to finally walk away with. If we take it to trial, these are the issues that we could win on, these are some of the issues that we could lose on. So those are some of the considerations. A settlement is not a complete win for anybody usually. It's somewhere that's a win for you because you're getting paid, but you're not going to get quite as much as you might have made had you taken it to trial, but you're going to get a lot of money right away if it's depending on the value of the case, and you don't have to go through the uncertainty of a trial.
So regarding the uncertainty of a trial, I think that's another question mark that kind of comes up. You can go to trial, not only will it drag out for a long time, but you could also end up losing, it's
everything.
Not like you can lose everything. You could get a judge that just says, finds something in the case, a missing piece, and they say, no, we're throwing the whole case out. Does that happen often?
Yes. I won't say often, but if you look at the number of cases that are filed, whether it's in district court, whether it's in circuit court or federal court, there's always something that can come up. And the biggest issue, as I mentioned earlier, is contributory negligence.
Yeah.
If, for example, you're walking on an icy step and you slip and get injured, but there was some information as far as the maintenance of that step as to whether you did enough or didn't do enough to maintain that step, or whether you knew or should have known that there was ice in the steps. These are some things that could affect your recovery, because if the court at trial or the jury, wherever it went, felt that you were even 1% at fault for that injury, then it's something that could completely negate recovery. And that's why so many states have switched over to comparative negligence. But Maryland is a colonial state. We have not switched over, and so that's a difficulty that you have.
Not to get into politics, but they're working on it. I've heard that one of the candidates is working to try to change that.
One of the candidates is, but the problem is there's a lot of insurance company money that's being put forth to certain candidates to have it never overturned. So it's obviously very difficult.
Right. So it's a tough battle right now. I mean, in Maryland, like being a personal injury lawyer, you guys take a lot of risks. And so it's not even that you don't want to go to court. It's just it's always safer to settle out of court if they're willing to settle. So the other thing I just want to mention is the importance and the need for the attorney nowadays versus before. When back in the day, you know, you would have a liability carrier call you directly without counsel and offer you 3 times the amount of your medical bills as a settlement for pain and suffering. It happened to me twice in 2 car accidents, and I started to learn the system and how it worked, and I thought, boy, this is really nice. You know, nowadays, you know, we have patients who have medical bills of $6,000 and they're offering a settlement of $4,000, which won't even, with no PIP. And so I don't think people really understand the critical need. Like, don't wait, don't play it out, don't give a recorded statement, don't make mistakes that could injure your case and think I can recover later, I'll hire an attorney later if I need it. The point of this is that you really do need it from day one. If you've been in an accident, you need to talk to an attorney, and it costs you nothing, but a few minutes of your time. So it really doesn't make sense not to, right?
Yeah, and you're getting a team. You're getting everyone in my office who works on the case. You're getting our team of experienced professionals who know how to handle these cases. To not have an attorney in these cases, okay, is the equivalent of saying, well, I've got these complicated tax issues, but I think I can do it myself.
It's like not having an accountant,
I'm in a lot of pain, but if I take a Tylenol, you know, I've heard that'll clear everything up.
Right.
Okay. Maybe in some strange circumstance, that's true, but the vast majority of the times, you could actually make it fundamentally worse by not going to see the professional. And that's why you get your professional involved in all those situations, because it's something that may not be your area of expertise. The odds are overwhelming, as one judge in Baltimore City likes to say. The odds are excellent that this is not your area of expertise. So you get somebody in who's much more prepared to handle these things and is only there to fight for your interests.
Right. I agree. And just so you guys know, you can work with Tom. You don't have to come down to their office. You guys can do most of your stuff remotely. I think, do you also travel to clients?
We will, yes.
Offices?
And having different offices allows us to do that.
Yeah. So don't think you have to fight downtown traffic or drive to Ocean City, to access him. So you guys can call him even if anywhere in Maryland you're located. Yeah. It doesn't matter where you live. So we're going to put his contact information at the end of this video. I really, really, really encourage you guys to share this. Please comment, leave your comments below, and share this video with your friends and family to let them know about this. We really want to get this education out there for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.